Erica from Ever Educating, and this channel is teaching tips, tools, ideas, and resources for new college instructors. Recently, I received a video request talking about suggestions for keeping your teaching skills sharp when you're not teaching for potentially a year. In this case, this person is doing a fellowship that's not teaching involved, and so they wanted some suggestions here. And I really appreciated this because, as of right now, it's officially been a year since I last taught a course. It's my last semester teaching finished, because I transitioned into instructional design in my career. So I really appreciate this question because I think I do have tips for this, considering I'm doing it myself because I'm not currently teaching. And so I have 5 suggestions of potentially how you can keep your skills sharp that hopefully some or all of these will help you in your own goal if you're out there listening to this video, having requested it. And so the first suggestion I have here is to go ahead and reflect on your past teaching experiences as a way of keeping your skills sharp. So you have potentially years of experience teaching before you started your fellowship, or maybe just a couple semesters or 1 semester. But taking that time to really, okay, I don't have the lesson plan currently, I don't have the grade because I'm not teaching. Let's take some time that I used to devote to that and think about what worked, what didn't work, what skills I really mastered, which ones could still use improvement, and just really take the time to delve into your past history of teaching and get a sense of how you can improve, how you did really well, what you would change going forward when you get a teaching position, right? So this can really help you when you start applying for teaching jobs to really be able to articulate your teaching experiences in really robust ways, because you've taken the time now to reflect on that experience really deeply. So that can be one way of keeping your knowledge, your insight strong, because you're doing a lot of reflection on your past with teaching. Now, another option is to keep teaching, but in non-traditional ways. So in this case, I no longer teach in the classroom, but I still teach on this YouTube channel, through my blog, through console calls. And so you might find non-traditional ways to keep teaching yourself. So this might be something digital, right? Creating a YouTube channel, creating a blog related to a passion and a hobby, or to your research. So that's one avenue. Then maybe you can check, local organizations. So your library, do you have a hobby that your library would appreciate someone teaching to their patrons? Or is your research really relevant to your community? Might you go somewhere and say, hey, I noticed that you have this kind of event that goes on every month. I'm actually an expert in this topic. I would love to be one of your facilitators for these discussions 1 month. So this could be free potentially, right? Or maybe it can be something you get paid to do, but it's thinking of ways to do non-traditional teaching throughout this year of your fellowship, or whatever the case may be for those of you watching this video. So that's another avenue as well, right? So reflect deeply on your history, or find non-traditional ways to still teach, even though you're not currently in a teaching role. Now, another option is research related. So you have your fellowship, or whatever the case may be here. Maybe you say, okay, 1 time a week, I'm going to read an article tied to teaching, not just tied to my research area. Or you might have one of these articles that I read for my research or for my work in the fellowship. I'm going to think a bit about how it can apply to teaching in the future. So even though you're not teaching currently, you can still have that kind of thought process going on when you're doing your research. Or you could specifically research teaching, since you're not actually doing it yourself. That way you can stay up to date on the research going on in your particular field, or in teaching, again, as a field itself. So that's another avenue that you might potentially find to be very helpful. You can also take this a step further and do thought experiments with the research you're doing or with the reflection you're doing. So for example here, potentially you will lesson plan a hypothetical course. So if I only had 7 weeks to teach a course on this topic, how would I structure those 7 weeks? If I was given a whole semester, 16 weeks to teach this topic, how would I do that? If I was invited to do a master class on this, 90 minutes webinar, how would I structure that? If I was teaching this as a grad class and I had them 3 hours a week, how would I structure that? So you're going to start basically drafting syllabi, right? Drafting course schedules, drafting assignments, drafting readings in preparation for potentially teaching your area in the future. So this could be obviously much more time consuming than just doing the research or the reflecting, but obviously it's definitely a way of practicing your skills more exactly, because you're practicing lesson planning. You're not just reflecting on it or thinking about it. You're actually creating activities, right? You're choosing readings, which means you're staying up to date on what's current in your field. So that more time consuming, but it can work really well as well. And then the fifth suggestion is, okay, well, your fellowship, it doesn't involve teaching, or what you're doing now doesn't involve teaching. That doesn't mean you can't stay connected to your former colleagues who potentially maybe are still teaching. And so you can say, hey, I would love to still meet for coffee once a month and kind of discuss how your classes are going, what's kind of new, what's interesting, and what you're experiencing. And through them, keep yourself connected to the teaching field as well, right? So this community building aspect can be really helpful too. Maybe you find teaching groups online that you can be a part of, so you can still keep in those discussions and still keep, yourself knowledgeable of what's going on in your field via teaching through those particular groups, okay? So that's another avenue as well. How can you use people in your life or people online as a resource too to keep your skills, your thinking sharp in relation to teaching? So these are 5 suggestions for you, to do. I do them all myself currently, and I find it very helpful to staying up to date and keeping my teacher thoughts alive. Of course, in my case, my job is actually designing college courses, so though I'm not teaching them, I'm still very invested. I'm involved in course design for university settings, but it's not exactly teaching, right? So I have these other avenues as well, right? The online aspect, my reflection of my past experiences, thinking about courses, that I would have enjoyed teaching, maybe I will in the future in a non-traditional way. So hopefully this was helpful. If it was, click like and let me know. Comment if you have any questions or thought yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.